My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 72 years old. People used to tell me how lucky I was. My son became a successful businessman, and my daughter became a doctor. That's why I could afford Silver Heights Grand Palace, one of the most exclusive senior living facilities in Manhattan. $5,000 a month for VIP accommodations. But what I discovered there was betrayal wrapped in luxury. And also, for the first time in 70 years, the flutter of unexpected romance. It all started 3 months ago. That night, around 2 in the morning, I woke up to the acrid smell of smoke. Looking out the window, I saw flames shooting up from the first floor. An electrical fire, they said. In my 20-year-old Brooklyn brownstone apartment, firefighters came, residents evacuated, and I was rushed to the hospital wrapped in a blanket. Thankfully, I wasn't seriously hurt, but my home was completely destroyed. Everything I'd collected over a lifetime, my late husband's belongings, photos of the children when they were young, all turned to ash. My daughter Jessica cried in the emergency room. My son David stood there, pale-faced, but something was strange. In their expressions, I saw relief. Not the relief that I hadn't been injured, but something else. A different kind of relief. I thought I must be imagining things. David said I couldn't live alone anymore. He'd found a good place, he said. The best senior living facility in New York. He said. I wanted to refuse. But looking at my home reduced to ashes, I felt my strength drain away. I had nowhere to go. I didn't want to impose on my children's homes, and I couldn't afford to find a new place on my own. The fire insurance payout would come, they said, but it would take time. So I nodded. I'd at least go take a look. Silver Heights Grand Palace was truly impressive. A 30-story tower with a gourmet restaurant on the first floor, a hospital-grade medical center on the 5th, and a sky garden on the roof. The admissions director, Mr. Harrison, was perfect. Designer suit, impeccable manners, smooth talking, 24-hour medical staff, personal nutritionists creating customized meal plans, complimentary morning yoga, Pilates, golf lessons. My room was a 2,500 square foot suite. It was like an apartment with a bedroom, living room, and kitchen. The window overlooked the Hudson River. David said proudly that he'd paid for the full year. $60,000, I learned later. But something was odd. I didn't sign the contract. David handled everything as my legal guardian. He said it was possible with a dementia diagnosis. A dementia diagnosis? I don't have dementia. David smiled and said it was just a formality, something to do with taxes. I just nodded. I trusted my son. The first day, there was a welcome dinner. French cuisine with wine. The other residents all looked refined. Mostly people in their 70s and 80s, all seemingly from wealthy families. That night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, my heart felt heavy. I was in a nice place, so why this anxiety? I thought it was just nerves about the new environment. A week after moving in, I was walking in the rooftop garden. There I met a man, tall, straight back, appearing to be in his mid-70s. His white hair blowing in the wind looked distinguished. He saw me too, and gave a slight nod. I returned the greeting. That was all. But strangely, his image stayed in my mind. The next day at the same time, he was in the garden again, sitting alone on a bench, reading a book. I was curious what book it was, but didn't have the courage to approach. On the third day, he spoke first. Had I just moved in? Where was I from? Was one adjusting well? His voice was pleasant, low and gentle. I answered. I'd come after losing my home in a fire. Still felt strange. But I was managing. He told me about himself too. His name was Robert Morrison. He'd lost his wife 2 years ago. And after living alone, his children suggested he move here a year ago. He used to own a business but was now retired. That's how we started meeting at the rooftop garden every day at 4 o'clock. At first, we just exchanged light greetings. Weather talk, cafeteria food talk, things like that. But gradually, we began sharing deeper stories. Robert had been an architect in his youth. He said there were buildings he'd designed all across the country. Watching him speak proudly made my heart feel warm. I told my story. 50 years with my husband. Difficult but happy times. The emptiness after he passed. Robert listened quietly, never interrupting or trying to console, just listening. About a month later, I realized it. Oh, I'm falling for this man. It was the first time I'd felt this at 72. I'd never thought about another man besides my husband. I was embarrassed. What kind of flutter at this age? I scolded myself. But the happiest time was being with Robert, talking with him, walking through the garden together, occasionally sitting at the same table in the dining room. In those moments, I wasn't lonely. Robert seemed to like me too. He never said it in words, but I could see it in his eyes. He'd smile warmly when I spoke, and quietly stay by my side when I was struggling. One evening, Robert said something that made my heart skip. He said that thanks to me, he felt alive again. After losing his wife 2 years ago, he'd lived like a dead man, but now he looked forward to waking up each morning. Hearing those words brought tears to my eyes. I felt exactly the same way. 2 months after moving in, I got a call from David. How was my health? Was I doing well? Any problems? Perfunctory questions. Then he got to the point. He needed me to sign papers to sell an apartment in Manhattan that was in my name. An apartment in Manhattan? What apartment? David explained. There was an apartment in my name, and if we sold it now, we could get a good price. We could use that money to cover the facility costs and keep the rest for my retirement. I had no idea. I didn't know I owned an apartment. David said I'd received it as a gift 5 years ago, that I'd signed for it myself. I couldn't remember. 5 years ago. That was when my husband was sick. We were constantly at the hospital, and I'd mindlessly signed papers David brought me. That must have been the gift transfer documents. So he wanted to sell that apartment? How much was it worth? David paused before answering. The market value was about $4 million. $4 million? Yes. Manhattan real estate had gone up a lot. That money would last me the rest of my life, with plenty left over. Something felt wrong. It was strange that I owned a $4 million apartment, and strange that we needed to sell it now. So I asked, why sell now? Why not just keep it? David's voice hardened slightly. This was the peak. He said, waiting longer might mean losing value. And we needed to think about my facility costs. I shook my head. Well, I couldn't shake my head over the phone, so I said it. I needed more time to think. I didn't want to rush the decision. David sighed. That sigh pierced my heart. Fine, he said. Take your time thinking. But waiting too long might mean missing the opportunity. The call ended. That night I couldn't sleep. A $4 million apartment. I'd owned something like that. Why hadn't anyone told me? Did Jessica know too? The next day, I went to the business center on the first floor. They had computers there. I looked up property records online. I entered my name and searched. It was really there. Manhattan Upper West Side apartment, 2,200 square feet. Owner Margaret Collins. The registration date was exactly 5 years ago. The very month my husband was diagnosed with cancer, and I discovered something even more shocking. There was a lien on the apartment. A $2 million lien. The creditor was David. My mind went blank. What did this mean? Had David borrowed $2 million using my apartment as collateral? I investigated further. My hands were shaking, but I kept clicking. The lien was set 2 years ago, 3 months after my husband died. I thought about what I was doing then. Drowning in grief, unable to do anything, not eating properly, not sleeping, just existing in a daze. I remember David coming by occasionally saying we needed to look at some papers. I'd signed without knowing what they were. Those must have been the lien documents. My heart sank. Could my own son do this to me? I needed to know more. I called Jessica. She'd have to know about this. Jessica said at first she didn't know. She didn't know about David's business, but when I kept pressing, she finally confessed. David's company was in trouble, she said. Nearly went bankrupt 2 years ago. So he took out a loan using my apartment as collateral. I wouldn't know anyway, and he thought he'd pay it back later. Did you know? I asked. Jessica's voice broke. Yes, she knew. But David asked her to keep it secret. She was worried I'd be devastated if I found out. I hung up. I couldn't listen anymore. My own children had been lying to me like this. That evening, I went to the rooftop garden. Robert was there. Seeing my expression, he immediately knew. He asked what happened. Said I didn't look well. I couldn't hold it in. I broke down, crying in front of him. It was embarrassing to cry in front of someone I'd just met, but I couldn't help it. Robert sat beside me without a word and handed me his handkerchief, an old white handkerchief. After crying for a while, I told him everything. The apartment, the lien, my children's lies, everything. Robert listened quietly, sometimes sighing, sometimes nodding, but never speaking. After I finished, Robert finally spoke. He'd had a similar experience. His son needed business capital and asked to borrow from his estate. Robert trusted him and gave it, but the business failed, and he never got the money back. It ruined his relationship with his son. Is that why you came to this facility? I asked. He said yes. It was uncomfortable being in the same neighborhood as his son's family, so he came somewhere far away. We sat in silence for a long time. Stars were shining in the night sky. Even in the middle of Manhattan, you could see stars. Robert said something then. Don't resent the children. They're struggling too, he said. But I also needed to protect myself. My remaining life was mine. Those words resonated deeply. Then Robert took my hand, just slightly, very carefully. It was warm, different from my husband's hand after 50 years together, but still warm. I didn't pull away. A few days later, I went to the management office. I wanted to see my contract. The staff member looked flustered. Why did I suddenly want to see the contract? Was there a problem? No, I just wanted to check. The staff member pulled out a file and showed me. It was a thick contract. I read through it page by page. Then I found a strange clause. In the event of a resident's death, 30% of paid fees will be deducted as a penalty, with the remainder returned to heirs. Death penalty? I kept reading. If a resident leaves within 6 months, 50% of paid fees will be deducted. If a resident's health deteriorates, requiring long-term hospitalization, the facility may terminate residency at its discretion, deducting 30% of paid fees. These clauses were outrageous, yet my seal was stamped here. Or rather, David's seal stamped as my legal representative. I realized how disadvantageous this contract was, and why David wanted me here. If I died within 6 months, they'd only return $42,000 of the $60,000. The facility would keep $18,000, and if I got sick and was kicked out, they'd still take 30%. Either way, it was a loss. A more frightening thought occurred. Was David hoping I'd die here soon? No, surely not. He couldn't. He's my son. But I couldn't shake the suspicion. Around that time, strange things started happening. I had a routine health checkup, and the nurse gave me medications. Blood pressure medication, she said, but there were 5 different pills. Why so many blood pressure pills? I asked. She said it was combination therapy. Not just blood pressure, but blood sugar, cholesterol, sleep. Various things needed management, but my blood pressure and blood sugar were normal. The nurse smiled and said it was preventive. These things happen with age, better to manage early, so I started taking the medications. Morning, noon, and night. After about a week, strange symptoms appeared. I was drowsy during the day. My head felt foggy. My memory seemed worse. I forgot my meeting time with Robert once. Couldn't remember where I'd put my room key. I was worried. Was I developing dementia? I told Robert, and he said he had similar symptoms since starting the medications. We compared our medications. Surprisingly, they were almost identical. Different names, but similar ingredients. Robert said his daughter was a pharmacist. He'd show them to her. A few days later, Robert came back looking serious. His daughter analyzed the medications. Most contained sedatives or sleep aids. Hardly any blood pressure or diabetes medication. Why would they give us these? Robert said quietly. To keep us docile. Sedated residents are easier to manage. I got goosebumps. From that day on, we only pretended to take the medications. We'd take them to our rooms and flush them down the toilet. After a few days, my head cleared, and I started noticing things around me. How dazed the other residents were. Sitting blank-faced in the dining room, listless in activities, like living corpses. This was wrong. Completely wrong. Once I stopped the medications, I noticed other things too. Mr. Chen from the 15th floor suddenly disappeared. He used to walk every morning, but hadn't been seen for a week. I asked the management office. They said his health had deteriorated, and he'd been transferred to a nursing home. That was strange. Mr. Chen had been healthy, healthier than me even. Robert and I went up to the 15th floor. Mr. Chen's room already had a new resident. We asked a cleaning lady in the hallway. She said quietly that an ambulance had come at night. Mr. Chen was taken away. The strange thing was, Mr. Chen had been shouting, saying he wasn't going, that he was being taken against his will. My heart dropped. A few days later, another person disappeared. Mrs. Kim from the 12th floor, also a nursing home transfer. Could this be coincidence? Robert and I started investigating. How many people had disappeared from here in the past year? We checked the obituary notices on the management office bulletin board, reviewed resident lists, asked other residents. The results were shocking. 24 people had disappeared in the past year. 8 deaths, 16 nursing home transfers. Average residency was 9 months. Wasn't that strange? People coming to a luxury senior facility for health care, and on average leaving for nursing homes or dying after just 9 months? Robert said it was deliberate. Give residents excessive medication to deteriorate their health, then evict them according to contract clauses. Pocket the penalty money that way. If a resident lasted a year, the full $60,000 stayed with them. But evicting them after 6 months meant pocketing $30,000, and the room could be sold to a new resident. It was a perfect scam system. 3 months after moving in, David came to visit. It had been a while since I'd seen my son, but I wasn't happy to see him. David asked how my health was, if I was taking my medications, if the staff were taking care of me. Yes, I'm fine, but I want to leave now. David's expression hardened. Why this sudden change? This was a good place. The best place for me. I said calmly. There were problems here. The medications were wrong. People were disappearing strangely, and the contract clauses were unfair. David sighed. Then he said, I seem to be developing paranoid delusions with age. Maybe I should see a doctor. Paranoid delusions? Me? Yes, lots of elderly people get like this, thinking everyone's out to hurt them. I got angry. Was he saying I was crazy? That I'd lost my mind? David said calmly. It wasn't like that. Just a health check. For my sake. It was all lies. Complete lies. I asked him directly. You want me to die here quickly, don't you? So you can dispose of the apartment however you want? David's face went pale. Then he got angry. How could I say that to my own son? After everything he'd done for me? Done for me? Is borrowing money against my property doing something for me? David fell silent. I told him, I'm leaving here. I'm terminating the contract, and I'm hiring a lawyer to get my property back. David said coldly, There's a dementia diagnosis in your name. Legally, you lack decision-making capacity, so he was my legal guardian. I couldn't do anything on my own. In that moment, everything became clear. The dementia diagnosis. It was all planned, making me legally incompetent so he could use my assets freely. David left, slammed the door. I collapsed and cried. How could the son I gave birth to and raised do this to me? That night, Robert came to my room. Residents visiting each other's rooms violated regulations, but I didn't care. Robert held me tight. The first time since my husband's death that I'd been held by someone. It was warm. After I cried for a while, Robert said something.
Margaret, let's leave here. Together.
What?
I don't want to be here either. Let's leave and live together.
Together?
Yes. I'm alone and you're alone. Why don't we spend our remaining lives together?
Starting over at 72 and 75?
Why not? We're still alive, aren't we?
I looked at Robert. His eyes held sincerity. Yes. Let's go. Let's leave together. We prepared meticulously for a week. First, I needed to overturn my dementia diagnosis. So I went to the hospital where Robert's daughter worked and got retested. The result was normal. I didn't have dementia. With that diagnosis, we went to see a lawyer Robert knew. The lawyer said this was clear fraud. Getting legal guardianship with a false diagnosis was illegal. Using property as collateral without consent was illegal. I could press charges. And the facility's illegal medication, unfair contract clauses, forced evictions were all problems too. Gathered evidence. Medication analysis results. The contract. The list of disappeared residents. Recorded conversations. Finally, DDY arrived. Early in the morning, we packed our bags and went to the management office. Robert and I together. We said we were terminating our contracts. The staff member looked flustered. Why so suddenly? The penalties would be enormous. We didn't care. And we'd hired a lawyer. We were prepared to fight this legally. Staff member called Mr. Harrison. 30 minutes later, Mr. Harrison appeared. His face was rigid. We presented our prepared documents. The new diagnosis showing no dementia, evidence of illegal medication, analysis of unfair contract clauses, cases of forced evictions. Mr. Harrison's face went white. Eventually, we terminated our contracts without penalties. Actually, we got half of our 3-month fees refunded. Walking out the front door, the sunlight was dazzling. Robert took my hand.
This is just the beginning, Margaret.
We found a house in a small town in Connecticut, a small 2-bedroom apartment. Robert and I each took a bedroom. We were still being cautious, but we enjoyed the daily routine of eating together, watching TV together, walking together. I took legal action against David, filed a lawsuit for property return, pressed charges over the false diagnosis. Jessica came crying. Said she was sorry. She didn't know. Didn't realize David would go that far. I hugged Jessica, told her it wasn't her fault, but from now on, I needed her on my side. The legal battle took 6 months. Eventually I won. Got the apartment back, had the lien removed. David received probation for fraud. People asked why I'd petitioned for leniency when I could have sent him to prison. I said because he was still my son. I could be angry, but couldn't give up on him. The facility case had bigger repercussions. Our lawyer found other victim families and organized a class action lawsuit. Eventually, Silver Heights Grand Palace lost its license, and Mr. Harrison was sentenced to prison for fraud and pharmaceutical law violations. It made the news. Dark side of luxury senior living. Robert and I did interviews, with our faces obscured. Many people contacted us, said they'd experienced similar things, asked for help. A year passed like that. One evening, Robert knocked on my door.
Margaret, will you marry me?
My heart stopped. Robert knelt down. A 75-year-old man knelt to propose.
Let's start properly now. I'm tired of living alone, and so are you. Let's spend our remaining lives together as husband and wife.
Tears came. Yes, I'd like that. Let's live together. We had a small wedding ceremony. Just a few friends, Robert's children, and Jessica attended. David didn't respond. I didn't wear a wedding dress. Instead, I wore a neat cream-colored suit. Robert wore a handsome navy suit. Taking photos, I felt strange. Starting a new life at 72. We honeymooned in Cape Cod. Walking the beach holding Robert's hand, I felt more excitement than on my honeymoon 50 years ago. Robert said something then.
Margaret, let's live another 30 years.
What? That would mean living past 100.
Yes, let's live to 100 and be happy every day.
As our story became known, we received speaking requests from various places. Elder rights organizations, consumer protection agencies, local welfare departments. Everyone wanted to hear our story. We accepted, hoping to prevent more victims like us. When we go to speaking venues, hundreds of seniors sit there. Everyone listens to our story with serious expressions. I tell them, don't give up because you're old. Don't just do what your children tell you. You are the owner of your own life. And Robert says, people in their 70s can start new love. People in their 70s can take on new challenges. Don't give up. Some elderly ladies cry and thank us. Say we gave them courage, that they'll try making changes too. Those moments make it all worthwhile, that our suffering can help someone else. Last year we even published a book, 72, Escaping Silver Heights. It became a bestseller. Lots of seniors bought it. The publisher sent royalty checks, quite a substantial amount. We used that money to establish an Elder Rights Protection Foundation, a foundation to help victims of senior living facilities. We get consultation calls every week. Seniors in situations similar to ours, seeking help. We connect them to free legal consultations, introduce them to lawyers, and sometimes meet them in person to offer comfort. Today is my 73rd birthday. Robert baked a cake this morning.
Happy birthday, Margaret. The bravest woman in the world.
I laughed. What's brave about it? I just fought to survive.
Fighting to survive is what makes you brave. So many people just give up.
I looked out the window. On our small balcony, flower pots lined up in rows. Flowers I'm growing, roses, chrysanthemums, geraniums, all blooming beautifully. The phone rang. It was Jessica.
Happy birthday, Mom. I'm coming over tonight with Jason.
All right, come. I'll cook something delicious. No word from David. It's been a year now. I guess he can't forgive a mother who sued her own son. It hurts. But there's nothing I can do. I didn't do anything wrong. Robert took my hand.
Margaret, no regrets?
About what?
Living like this. You could have stayed comfortably at Silver Heights.
I shook my head. No regrets. This is real living, even if it's hard. It's a life I chose. Robert smiled and kissed my forehead. I'm 73. Living the final chapter of my life, but I'm happier now than ever. More than when I was trapped in Silver Heights' golden cage. More than when I lived watching my children's faces. Much more. Our lives are our own, until the very end. And love has no age limit. You can flutter at 70, be happy at 70. Now I need to light the candles on the cake. 73 is too many, so I'll just light one. One candle meaning a new beginning. I make a wish to live long, healthy, and happy with Robert, and for there to be no more victims like us. I blow out the candle. Robert applauds. This is the beginning of my 73rd year. A new love, a new mission, a new life. It's not over yet. Our story continues.